Hi, I'm SlipperPutty. This is a tale that encompasses some of my favorite elements of a story. Random comedy, adventure, dark aspects, and set in an alternate universe. Yes, it has a few of my favorite things. And they've all been completely ruined in this story! This story that we're reading today is called The Lost Elements, written by SpaghettiPie. It's currently incomplete with 2 chapters totaling about 1,800 words. The description reads, Twilight, Sparkle, and Spike, both at home from a long day of adventure and relaxation, find themselves reading a new and mysterious book gifted from Princess Celestia, which may be comedy, tragedy, or just a plain old spell book. But can the words twisted inside of the book send a dark spell out to attack the elements of harmony, or elements of a different kind? Sounds interesting enough, right? Well, I can tell you right now that the description tells a better tale than the entire story does in its 1,800 words. In fact, this story is loaded with so many bizarre events that we could spend an hour talking about each of them. But of course, we don't have all the time in the world, so let's take a look at this thing called The Lost Elements. We open up with Twilight reading in her house and Spike playing with his pet, Pee-wee. Twilight interrupts Spike from his playtime to have a chat with him. Spike, started the unicorn, it says here that all elements are combined. Some are deadly and some are kind. And some of them are complete jerks, like Potassium, but we don't talk about him. But once a powerful unicorn can uphold the spell, they will slowly begin to rise and plan. If they meet, they bring our illness. If they come together as one, the world as we know it will surely be done. So what are the elements themselves planning to do? The destruction of Equestria? A prank? A picnic? Create an inflatable deflator? Apparently Twilight's words have a significance to them as they echo throughout her house. The words echoed the library like the hoots of a nearby owl. The unicorn continued to read softly to the baby dragon, almost careless, unlike herself. I'm sorry, but I don't think that's the way that wood works. Wood isn't as dense as metal, so it really can't produce an audible echo. Unless Twilight was living in some sort of cave, that couldn't happen. At all. Twilight continues in her magical words of wisdom until she realizes that Spike has grown tired of her ranting and has gone back to playing with his pet. Spike! This is important. You should be taking notes. Princess Celestia wouldn't have given this book if it weren't important. She stomped her hoof, causing the baby dragon by the name of Spike to jolt up. The baby dragon by the name of Spike? Why do we need to know that? Was there some other dragon in the room? Baby Crackle crawled back to the basement, feeling rejected and alone. Twilight, I'm sure it's just a gift. I mean, it's almost heartwarming Eve. She probably just didn't want it to be late. He glared softly up at Twilight, the violet unicorn with a magical mark on her hip. Okay, kids, time for a lesson. Have you ever heard of lavender unicorn syndrome? If you haven't, this paragraph contains a prime example of what it is. You're a writer, and you don't want to be so repetitive by using the same name, such as Twilight Sparkle, over and over again. So instead of at least using personal pronouns, or at least being a little more descriptive in your writing, you use awkward phrases such as the lavender unicorn, the cyan-colored Pegasus with the rainbow mane, or the sunset-colored earth pony. All of those kinds of examples only serve to distract your reader from your story and really don't make your story sound artistic, if that's what you're trying to do. It's also like saying, making his decision between the apple and the banana, he chose the slender yellow object. We already know what a banana is, so there's no need for a description of the said banana. Similarly, we know who Twilight is, so we don't need a description of what she looks like. But enough of that, because Twilight is just about fed up with Spike's arguments. Spike, if you were even paying attention, you would know that they gave me a perfect spell. Probably works, too. She stretched up her narrow legs and stood up softly. But I guess it is late. Besides, we already know the elements are working. After that run-in with Discord, they seem to work fine. Yeah, that quick run-in with Discord made them malfunction a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. Discord's just an old friend of ours. Maybe it's just some type of fanfiction type thing, written by an extremely talented filly or cult. Yeah, maybe. The dragon huffed slightly, glaring down at his shorter legs, resting by the bird born from flames. He let out a short yawn and then looked up at Twilight, who was tapping her face with her own hoof. Wait, what was Twilight doing? He let out a short yawn and then looked up at Twilight, who was tapping her face with her own hoof. So after Twilight offers some more bogus explanations as to the book's significance, we get this paragraph. There was a slight glow around the lavender horn, and the book had the same effect, as it lifted off into the air and fell on a pile of books. It rested on a large story of stories, probably what Twilight would have read later, or has been reading, waiting to be organized tomorrow. As you can see, this paragraph is filled with so much imagery and proficiency of subtleness that no common mortals such as yourselves can possibly understand it. But I, Pontius Paragraph, shall effectively translate it for all to understand. Let's see. I've got it! It says, Twilight moved the book to a stack of books across the room. Yes, too much depth in descriptions can confuse the common man, but I shall always understand. Always! So Spike gets bored with the story and decides to hit the hay. Twilight, however, decides to keep thinking aimlessly about Celestia's intentions in giving her the book. She's almost desperate enough to pray to the pony goddess. I can have Spike write a letter. She flattened her ears and looked up the stairwell softly. He's resting, though, or will be, so I can't wake him up. Obviously, she couldn't have just woken Spike up for 5 minutes to write a simple letter and send it off to the princess. But he needs his sleep. He needs his sleep. By the way, this author loves to talk about ponies' ears. Oh, don't believe me? Just try taking a shot every time you read ear or ears. But be careful, though. One of my pre-readers almost died trying that. So after Twilight finally goes to bed, we go right into the second chapter. The unicorn from last night, mostly known as Twilight, trotting across a grassy land with dirt paths covering like snow on a field. Most ponies simply knew her name as Twilight, though others knew her better by her stage name, Wallapampachia. Inside the building, beautiful and bright, was a pure white unicorn, with a lovely shade of dark purple, almost blue mane, curled around and to match her lovely tail with a mark of 3 diamonds. She was looking up at many lines and shades of colors, almost every one of a rainbow. They didn't match her literal rainbow dress, which was designed perfectly to match a rainbow, then dropped with a cloud at the very end. Ah, encountering another difficult paragraph, eh? Well, let's take a look at it. I've got it! It reads, Rarity was in her house making a dress. Oh, I'm so glad you're needing my services so often. The white unicorn was talking, but Twilight couldn't hear or see who this beauty was talking to. Ugh, why does Twilight call Rarity a beauty? Unless you're going to include a Rarity Twilight ship, it's kind of awkward to use that word to describe Rarity, especially from Twilight's perspective. Rarity, I'm here to tell you about the book. I think it involves the elements, Twilight called out. She wasn't afraid to either. Hey Rarity, remember that book that I got yesterday that I actually didn't tell you about yet? I think it involves the elements. I think that means trouble. I guess. It was a proven fact that everyone around this pony town that they were 2 of the elements of harmony. The only heroes found a part of this. This had the violet unicorn thinking now. What if this book is suggesting there is going to be an anti-element? Twilight started, looking at the door slowly. That would only mean we need to put up another fight. Will they come to us, though? Well, thanks for spoiling the whole plot of the rest of the story. Guess I'll only have to check up on it when the last chapter comes out. Rarity greets Twilight at the door and leads her to our first OC named Quicksilver. Twilight finds out that Quicksilver is a scientist and asks her what she studies. Quicksilver smiled softly. Twilight Sparkle asking me what I study. What's that all about? Twilight isn't omniscient. Yet. I study weather. People say it's because I look like rain pouring on a roof. This statement was very true, and Twilight nodded gently. Others say it's because I look like the stuff inside the thermometer. Others say it's because I'm a poorly designed character who's already dull and unoriginal. Seriously though, how can you look like rain pouring on a roof? If that's the case, it would seem more likely that you would have polka dots on you. Also, she studies weather because she has the colors of the weather? Isn't it a pony's cutie mark that's supposed to determine what your destiny is? It's apparently not the case according to this story. The way you look is the way you live. And if that's true, I could just say that I should be an actor because I look like Brad Pitt. Rarity compliments Quicksilver on her beauty, after which Quicksilver blushes. Don't worry, it's more complicated than it sounds. Quicksilver's mane dropped in her face. It was very bright indeed, and had few curls. It was down and looked like tidal waves dropping down, even with the little amount of curls. It went to her knees and was very like, and had matched her tail exactly. Ah, need me again, do you? What have we here? Oh, it's so obvious. Quicksilver is wet. Oh, wait. Haha! Quicksilver looks like a ton of water! Haha! Water, water, water! Haha! Glad to be of service! So it turns out that Quicksilver is just a model for Rarity. And Rarity certainly has fun using her. Pink is just the perfect color for her. The snowy unicorn laughed happily. I just love how her mane makes the color glow. Once people see this advertisement, they'll be in awe. Quickie, do you have any friends that glow? Yes, I do. One of my cousins was involved in this terrible lava lamp accident last year. Quicksilver mentions that she'll be leaving soon, but Rarity suddenly makes a strange shift in the plot. Quicksilver, Twilight said something about a meeting. You can probably help. Rarity smiled softly, tilting her head and looking patient as she took off Quicksilver's shoes. Why does Rarity feel the need to get Quicksilver involved in this all of a sudden? Well, we never find out. The author never really explains Rarity's motivations. Quicksilver makes it apparent that she doesn't want to go, but Rarity won't have any of that. Nonsense, Quicksilver! Rarity bursted loudly before Twilight could respond with the usual quick retort and drag Rarity along with her. You would understand enough. I've told you just about everything, and I would hope that you can understand, knowing how much I do. Seriously, enough, Rarity. Why do you have this desire to send Quicksilver off with Twilight? I mean, even Twilight herself admits that this is a job specifically for the elements of harmony. So after that's over, Rarity and Twilight decide to meet at the library to discuss whatever was supposed to be discussed, and Twilight finally leaves to do something else, while leaving Quicksilver to continue modeling for Rarity. Twilight snickered and nodded. Have fun! She called out before opening the door with her magic and leaving. Opal, a pure white cat, swatted at the unicorn's tail as she left. And Jack, a beautiful swallow-tailed butterfly, flew effortlessly across the Everfree forest to continue on his quest to the great already known. And that's all that's available of the Lost Elements. So you're probably wondering what I think about this story. Well, I'd tell you, if I knew what the heck it was about. I mean, between unnecessary descriptions, the Lavender Unicorn Syndrome, and pointless subplots, you honestly can't tell where the story is going. I guess it's just pure luck that the story has sufficient description. I will say that the idea for the story is pretty cool. The concept of negative elements is actually appealing and would make for a really good story. True, it has been done before in some cases, but the author could still make this into an intriguing tale. But just looking at what we have, I really don't see much for the story. We don't see anything happening really in the first 2 chapters. We just see a bunch of events that may or may not have relevance to the rest of the story. There seems to be a fairly big possibility that Quicksilver is one of the negative elements, but aside from that, nothing really significant seems to happen. Also, if you look at the actual story, you'll see that the tags are kind of screwed up. After reading the story, there is no way that you can think this is a dark, random comedy adventure located in an alternate universe. It's just way too many characteristics, and the story certainly doesn't fit all of them. Overall, this story gets a rating from me of 5.5 out of 10 slippers. It is an intriguing idea for a story, but it's kind of lazily developed and we really don't see anything happen at all. I'll probably give it a follow just because I want to see where it's going, but I'm really not too sure what it's going to do. But don't let me steal your elementary opinions on this story. Go check it out yourself by following the link provided in the description below. Let SpaghettiPie know what you think about this story. Give him some praise, some critique, or just some general comments. I know nothing. I'm just a brainless Orthodox Rottweiler turned human for unknown purposes. I do encourage you to read the story for yourself, though, because I always promote giving any author praise or criticism on their stories. After all, any author isn't going to improve unless you give him some valid criticism or ways that he can improve. Don't be that guy who just clicks the dislike button and just leaves. Give some advice. You never know, you might be helping the next great author on Fanfiction. Also, there'll be a special guest host next week, so don't be surprised if you don't hear my sexy voice. So until some point in the distant future, I'm SlipperPutty, and keep an eye on those strange beings, the ones that they call people.